Well, hello everybody, it's DL63 here again today. Hope everybody is doing well. Today I'm going to talk about another unexpected gun purchase. You know, that gun that sometimes follows you home? I think I've only done one other video about that. It's not only one other time that it's happened with me, but I've only done one other video about that, and that was about the Remington 7600 308 pump action hunting rifle. And that particular scenario was when Gander Mountain was going out of business, and it was sitting up there almost by itself on a shelf, and they want to let go of it for a ridiculously low price. And I've done a number of videos about that particular firearm, including hunting with it, so feel free to check that out. Today, I happen to unexpectedly come home with a firearm that I'm very much fine with having and I'll have a good use for, but I wasn't necessarily in the market for, and that was a Glock 21. Now, this particular one is a Generation 3. It's a police trade-in. And so the price was something that I couldn't pass up. I'll show you in a minute what that particular firearm looks like. It's in awfully good shape, and give you a little bit more information about it and my impressions. But today we are going to review the Glock 21 Generation 3 police trade-in. And that's in 45 ACP, which is a caliber that I've always liked. 45 1911s that I've owned. However, I've never been a big fan at all of the capacity of standard 1911 and 45 ACP. Well, Glock solves that problem, 13+1. And to quote my dad used to say, now we're talking. So let's take a look. Okay, well, as I mentioned, we're doing an outdoor tabletop review today, which is nice. We've got beautiful spring weather here in Minnesota. Just a few weeks ago, we were having a blizzard. But we're going to look at this police trade-in from the world of Glock. And here she is, the Glock 21. This is Generation 3. And just giving this a quick look-see, not a lot of evidence of wear or being shot at all. Not a lot at all. See what appear to be some cursory holster marks. We're going to break this down in a second, but this is in remarkably good shape. These come with night sights, this particular one, and you can't tell in the daytime here, but I did check this out in a dark spot. There is tritium left, so these are something that you are able to acquire in the dark. What first I want to do is just kind of compare this to some prior Glocks that I've owned. My very first Glock was one of the bigger ones, the Glock 20 in 10mm. Just like this Glock 21, it's got the full frame, the large slide, in fact, many of the same parts. You can see big, bulky, U-shaped rear sight, and of course the signature, hey, I'm holding a brick and pointing it at you look coming from the front. The ability to handle 15+1 rounds of 10mm makes the Glock 20 an awesome firearm. Don't get me wrong about 1911s. I think they're awesome designs. They're the granddaddy of all modern semi-automatic firearms. They're 107 years old, and they carry 7+1 rounds of 45 ACP. Now, I'm not here to start a caliber war, but in my view, I'll take that 15 or 16 or 17 or 18+1 any day. The Glock 43 now is a lower capacity 9mm firearm. It's meant for ultra conceal, pocket or purse carry. It has its use, but it wasn't something that I was really interested in hanging on to for too long. Now let's take a look at this with reference to what has been my carry pistol for the last 6 or so months, and that's the Glock 19 Generation 5. And I'm just going to stack this up right here, and we're going to get a look at this and see how much extra barrel you get there. And you can see where it falls in terms of the grip. You've got a 9mm that has 15+1 capacity on top. You've got a 45 ACP that has 13+1 capacity. So, not bad. Size-wise, if I want to stack the generation, or the 19X, I should say, you'll see pretty much identical in terms of the height from the bottom of the magazine to the top. Lengthwise, little bit, just a tad longer on the slide, as you can see here with the 21. So looking at Glock versus Glock versus Glock, you're able to see that this isn't so much of a bigger firearm. When you compare the slide, however, thickness, you can see there's a difference here. There's most definitely a difference. So it is a wider slide. The Glock 21 is nothing I would attempt to conceal. I did not buy it for that purpose. I do carry the 19X concealed. In fact, I was carrying this today concealed, and not a problem wearing shorts and a t-shirt. I was going to the gun store. I really don't care if somebody saw me printing, but you can see, looking at these firearms, that the differences are subtle but noteworthy. Let's take a look from this dimension. Again, we've got the 19X on the right. And you've got, in the neighborhood of somewhere around between an 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch difference in width. So this is a bigger firearm width-wise. And again, just looking at this, wear marks on this are next to non-existent. Next to non-existent. Only thing I don't like about this firearm, I'm not gonna lie, are these finger grooves. I stayed away from the 19 until the Generation 5 because of the finger grooves. On the wider gun, on the bigger gun, it's less noticeable. For the purpose that I intend to use this, though, it's not going to be that big a deal. I know there's options out there if you don't like finger grooves too. Taking a look at these internals, this is crazy. Starting looking at the slide, it's not dirty in the least. I ran my finger down in that bottom section where usually you'd see some carbon buildup. Certainly back here near the magazine, and just isn't happening. Just isn't happening. It really makes me wonder to what extent this firearm ever was fired. It does have the single capture spring and not the double capture spring. We'll talk about that in a second. But in terms of looking at this barrel, you've got a little bit of wear from some firing, not a lot. And the places where typically you start seeing a lot more, you're just not seeing them. That's not wear. So yeah, this thing was fired, but most of the wear that it's on this firearm is just cosmetic surface wear. And you look at the barrel, like I said, if you want to compare the smile marks on here to firearms that have been fired a lot, you'll see them more pronounced than this. So it's pretty clear to me that whoever carried this gun probably did their necessary qualification shooting. I mean, you know, come on, this is an area where typically you're going to see the wear, and I'm just not seeing it. And back here, next to nothing. Looking at the slide and so forth. getting back to the slides and comparing the 19 Generation 5, which is right here, to the Glock 21. Well, I can tell you right now, my 19 is dirtier. You go back to the areas where, you know, after 1,000 rounds, something like that, you're gonna see some things like this build up. I don't know what kind of use this 21 has, but it's, if you were to say which one of these two is the used police trade-in out of the two, I'd probably have to go ahead and say, well, it's the 19. I talked about that double capture spring. Most of you that are familiar know that, and I think starting with Generation 4s, I know this was the case in my Glock 20 Generation 4, instead of having just a straight spring and a guide rod, there was what I call a double capture spring. So not only the straight spring, but over the top of that, a secondary spring. Really super helpful when you're shooting 10 millimeter with the 20, and probably would be more helpful in a 45 caliber frame than in a 9 millimeter frame, but that's just one of the differences when you look at the generations. But if you look at here and you look at these smile marks, again, more pronounced, I think, on the newer firearm. So, you know, a little bit of a rub between the two where you don't have this as much, and that's going to have to do with how the barrel travels through the slide. It's not going to be exactly the same. But when you look at these two firearms, not a heck of a lot of difference. Not a heck of a lot of difference. So as we look at these slides, I'll give you another view, again, that helps you kind of understand differences in the slides. Again, this is the 21. It is a wider slide. And this is the 19 Generation 5. So why the bigger opening here at the bottom of the slide? Because of this double capture spring. You have a much larger opening with which to nestle your spring and your guide rod. But you can kind of see the differences here, and then, you know, you look here and you've got this tapering or beveling on the front of the slide, which you don't have with the older Glocks. Certainly this style where it's just a big square. But I'm just going to have to tell you, in terms of looking at these two firearms side by side, one's been carried for, like I said, 6 or so months, and the other one is a police trade-in from several years ago. They both held up really well. Also want to give a shout out to the guys at Sportsman's Guide. Now I live about 20 miles from their store, their warehouse outlet. So they have a store there. And when I went in and determined that, my gosh, I'd really like to have one of these at a sub $400 price, I'll leave it at that. They were kind enough to go out and let me look at several of them. It's something you can't do when you order online, obviously. And determine which one was the best. And checked out to see which one had some tritium left and everything. And the one that they chose for me was flawless. Darn near flawless, I think. And so I just want to give those guys a shout out. Sportsman's Guide has provided good service for me. I believe that they have really good deals on things, especially if you are a club member. It costs like $39 a year, and you get 10% off accessories, 5% off firearms. I haven't bought a lot of firearms from them, but I bought quite a bit of ammunition from them, and been real happy with that. So I just want to give those guys a shout out. Last thing I wanted to comment on is I recently purchased this Streamlight TLR3, and having it in mind for use with the 19 Glocks, but being that this is most likely a bed stand slash glove box kind of gun, I'm certainly never going to conceal something of this size. What a nice surprise. It's a flush fit. Controls are easily reachable for my fingers. Minimalist, which is what I like in a light. And not bad. Not bad at all. So, you know, as far as reaching out, I don't have any problem doing that with my fingers. This one especially. So you kind of see a nice flush fit, good nightstand scenario. I like it. I like it quite a bit. So, gonna have to say that this is the unexpected gun purchase that I'm probably gonna like the most from a self-defense perspective, and looking forward to doing some firing with this, and we'll of course show that to you. Maybe we'll do some side-by-side, see what kind of accuracy we get compared to, say, this Glock Generation X, which is a real accurate daddy. So we'll check that out. Notice too, this came with a lanyard, which is never going to go in. Actually took it out. This has a spot for one, if that's your thing, but it's not my thing. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching today. This is Dr. Drake 63 with unboxing first impression of the Glock 21 Police Trade-In. I'm glad Barney Fife was the guy that owned this gun. Thanks for watching. And remember, please support the National Rifle Association.